Okay, what lies are we going to hear from Sammy Gravano in his Sons of Ecstasy documentary that was out on Max? I actually watched it yesterday and I have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts on it. I wanted to share to you what I thought was the good, the bad, and the ugly on this thing. And I think a lot was left out. It actually had some potential, but I felt that at the end of the day, there was a lot that made it fairly mediocre. I don't know much about the company that did this thing, but I guess it was a some sort of high budget company. But I just want to tell you what I thought about Sammy Gravano because Lee and I did a very deep dive on the whole thing that was out there with the ecstasy ring. I mean, we dug deeper, I think, than anybody out there. The only one that might have done as much as we did on the deep dive on the ecstasy ring that Sammy Gravano was leading, what might be the Arizona newspaper out there. So, um, hour and 15 minutes long. It didn't take the documentary wasn't that long. I thought it was interesting to see Sean Atwood in there, and I thought Sean Atwood might be the only person that, in my opinion, that had some sort of redeeming factor. Everyone else, I didn't see any remorse from anybody. I thought some of the dialogue was a little cheesy and corny, especially between Sammy and his son Gerard. So I would say that the two main characters of this documentary were Gerard Gravano and English John Atwood. And so I guess to start off, the Gravano family, the whole family was involved in this ecstasy ring. So Sammy Gravano, as we know, everyone probably knows, he was, started out as a Colombo, became a Gambino under Toto in the around 1973. He gets made in 1977, and he was a soldier. Really was not really well known outside of Brooklyn until John Gotti, and then John Gotti becomes the boss, and Sammy rise really happened as a result of the faith and the support that John Gotti had of Sammy Gravano. And Sammy repays that back by ratting on him in 1990, and or actually 1991. And so they get arrested in December of 1990, and it is I think it's November of 91's when officially Sammy Gravano flipped. And Sammy was part of 19 murders, even though he pulled the trigger maybe twice. We know there's evidence that he did pull the trigger on um, actually on Alan Kaiser, you know, um, and we talked about how Sammy kind of messed up and admitted to it last time. So, anyway, um, point is, he goes out to Colorado first. We're told from Junior Gotti's interview that there might be some sort of domestic incident that happened in Colorado, and that's why Sammy Gravano had to leave Colorado. And so he ended up in Arizona. According to what we saw from at least from this documentary, something I didn't know was that supposedly Gravano's family moved from New York to Arizona, and that even though they were in Arizona, Sammy was still in Colorado. And then it was later when Sammy moved to Arizona, and he lived in his own apartment, separate from the rest of the family. That's true, but they tried to say the reason that the Gravano, not talking about Sammy, but the reason the kids and Deborah left was that they were threatened, and that the Gambinos were trying to take him out, and that's not true. We know from John Gotti, and this has been substantial. I mean, John Gotti Jr. and John Gotti, and also substantiated from Mikey Scars, that they were never targets of the Gambino family. And in fact, they tried to look after them. They wanted to make sure no one would mess with Gerard or Karen or Deborah. So anything else is a lie. And, that was actually one of the few times that Junior Gotti actually got into it with the Gravanos on Twitter was about 10 years ago when Karen Gravano was spouting that bullshit that, the Gambinos were trying to clip them. And that was saying that John Gotti Jr. went up and said, "Hey, don't you remember we protected you? Why are you lying?" And so anyway, so they go back. They have the Sal's Italian restaurant. They also have Marathon Construction. It's pretty ironic that the name of the construction company that Sammy Gravano had in New York was also Marathon Construction. They also had a pool company. One thing that was interesting is, if we're to believe Gerard, is that the Gravanos had $3 million put away, basically in the ground. They dug a hole, and it was in the ground somewhere. So they brought the $3 million from New York, moved to Arizona, and then finally the father, Sammy, came down there. We know about the restaurant. We went by the restaurant. The restaurant and the construction company was used to launder money. We also, know about there were several companies that that Sammy Gravano put in his wife's name. So one of the biggest lies out there is that Sammy Gravano and his wife Deborah are divorced. They're not divorced. They're still married. We've checked all of the marriage records. We've checked divorce records. We've checked under both Jimmy Moran and Salvatore Gravano. We've checked all that, and there's been no divorce. Not in New York, not in Colorado, not in Arizona, but they have lived separately. So that part is true. But the thing is that Sammy Gravano for years, and even to this day, puts stuff in his wife's name so he is protected from the son of Sam law, which was that criminals can't benefit from the crimes that they committed. And so we know about the restaurant. We know that also and this is true, that Gerard Gravano was wanting to be a chef. He trained to be a chef, and he worked a restaurant. It was basically his mother and it was Deborah and Gerard that was doing it. And so my dog. So anyway, so we know about that. And so anyway, it's interesting when the Gravanos had moved out to Arizona, Sean Atwood, they call him English Sean, he had already had his Ecstasy ring out there. And so Sean Atwood was very interesting. He's actually from Liverpool, England, or outside of Liverpool. He got a business degree. He wanted to be a stockbroker. He wanted to make money. He had actually watched the movie, the original Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, whatever it was, that had, I believe, Michael Keaton in it. I think that's who it was. Can't remember, Michael Douglas maybe, but yeah, it was Michael Douglas actually. So anyway, he wanted to be wealthy, and so he actually worked for 5 or 6 years in Arizona. Worked at a penny stock brokerage firm, and became the highest producing stockbroker there. He was making, this is talking about in the early '90s. He was making $500,000 a year. So, I mean, the guy was making a boatload of money legitimately, but he started to burn out from doing all that, and he went to a couple of the raves. So the raves in Arizona, those started in the late 80s, I would say. I mean, obviously they were pretty popular in Los Angeles. They were popular in New York. I even remember, growing up in the Dallas area, that you had raves that would go on in the late 80s, early 90s there in Dallas. And so anyway, he started to I think what happened was that he tried ecstasy, he liked it, and then I think somehow he got his hands on some of the ecstasy, and his friends bought the ecstasy within, a couple of hours. And so he started to see that there was a demand for it. And so there was a couple of nightclubs out there that, after they were basically after hours clubs. So after, I don't know, after 2 o'clock, you would have these raves that would open. They would continue up till 6 or 7 in the morning. And so you had this big demand for ecstasy, and he built this thing up into something like I don't know, he was making $1 million, $2 million a week, I believe, off of the ecstasy. And he had kind of a small group of people. They weren't violent. His clientele was mostly was teenagers, were teenagers and young college age students that, loved to party and loved to go to the raves. And so there was and he could buy the stuff for like $2 a pill, $2 to $3 a pill, and then sell it for, I don't know, up to $20. And so it was huge margins. And he initially was buying the stuff from Los Angeles area, and then later he actually builds up a distribution network out of Amsterdam, Holland. So the guy, had an international ecstasy ring, and so things were going really well with him on it. But then uh, Sammy Gravano moved to Arizona, and Gerard, he was having a lot of trouble. He had to move. They moved from New York. He didn't really have a lot of friends. He was working at the Sal's restaurant, and somehow he met that guy Michael Papa. And Papa was the one that gave the idea that, hey, they could make some money, through ecstasy. And so apparently this whole thing only lasted about 6 months before they got caught. But the difference was with Gravano, with Gerard and Michael Papa, they were more violent. They had more of a darker side. They were on steroids. Gerard was on steroids, so was Papa, and they had short fuses. They had guns. They were violent, and so that's when basically a lot of conflict between English Atwood and his group and this Gravano ring. And Gravano, for the most part, was getting his ecstasy out of New York, so he had ties back to New York. And so one of the problems with this whole documentary is that, yeah, they talk about the ecstasy ring and everything, but they don't talk about the overlying organization that Sammy Gravano was creating. Sammy Gravano was trying to create a new family, a new mob family that was like a family for the 21st century. It was going to have, you know, blacks. It was going to have non-Italians. It was going to have women in it. I mean, he was wanting to establish this new type of mafia there. He would go to he would go and talk about and reminisce about his time in the mob at the coffee houses and everything. And so all these college students were looking up to Sammy, thought he was this gangster hero and all that. So the thing was is that we have to realize that the ecstasy ring was just one part of the overall goal that Sammy Gravano had to establish a family, a mob family in Phoenix, Arizona. And so um they don't talk about that part in this documentary. And we have all the court documents. We have all the charges. The charges were, I don't know, saying like, I think there are like 20 something charges for each of these people. And, Sammy Gravano blames this on his kids. He was basically trying to say, well, I was just investing in this business and that was it. Well, no, that wasn't true. He was also teaching these guys how to use weapons, how to be gangsters, and they forget to bring up that. It was more serious than what this documentary wanted to point out, because the whole plan was that they were going to, really build up a big family there. Sammy was talking about reaching out to some of the people he knew from New York and trying to get them to come down and be part of this thing. And so Sammy's legitimate businesses started to suffer while this ecstasy ring and everything else started to do really well, make a lot of money. But at the end of the day, they got the Gravanos got ratted on. When Papa got arrested, he immediately ratted, and so it was pretty interesting that how Sammy was so upset. He's upset to this day that Papa would rat, and he was saying that he would like to put, I think, what, hit him over the head with his chair or something like that, even to this day, talking about Papa. And they're trying to say they don't know where Papa is, but Lee and I, we know where Papa is. We know where he ended up moving to and all that, but he doesn't want to be involved in any of this stuff. So you're not going to hear him anytime soon. So anyway, they left out a lot of the stuff. I mean, if you want to, know the real story about this, we're gonna try to find the videos that we did. I thought it was called the Gravano Crime Family, something like that. I'm still looking for it in the stuff that Lee and I did. So once I find it, I will link it to this video so that you can watch it. But um let's see if there's anything else about this ecstasy thing that I would want to bring up. Yeah, I think English Sean, they actually showed him Sean Atwood. He went back to, so he's back in England. He ended up spending 8 years in prison there in Arizona, and he was there in that Sheriff Joe's. The way they put everyone out in the tents and all that. That's where he was, and ironically, they had Gerard as like the cellmate with this guy Atwood. And you remember they were enemies originally because they were both competitors in the ecstasy trade, but they became friends in prison. And what Sean said was that the trouble that Gerard had was he always wanted to please his father. He struggled because he wanted to have his own identity away from what his father did. I mean, his father had this personality, had this name that pretty much smothered Gerard, and so he just wasn't sure what he wanted to do with his life. But he ended up getting 9 years in prison. He spent 8 years. Talking about Sean was, I think, 7 years in prison. Couple of people ratted, so they didn't really spend much time. I think uh, probation was given to both Karen Gravano and Deborah, the wife of Gravano. But I felt that Atwood was real remorseful. He shed a few tears. He felt bad about having to put his parents through. His parents had to come up with money for an attorney and all that. So, it was pretty. I think he was being pretty legitimate. I thought the ugliest part was Sammy. So Sammy's going after this guy Papa for ratting, but then he's blank. And then they said, "Well, didn't you rat yourself?" And they they showed the picture of him in the New York Post with the picture of a rat on him, and Sammy said it was bullshit, and he tried to say, "Oh well, it was John Gotti trying to do rat moves on him, and that's why he didn't want anything else to do with the mafia." So he's still throwing all that nonsense out there about why he ratted, but like I said, they left out a whole lot, and um, I would I don't know, I'd rate it maybe, I don't know, a 2 out of 4 maybe. It wasn't the worst documentary. I mean, I learned a few things, but it wasn't all that good in my opinion. Like I said, I would say Sean Atwood would be the only redeeming character in this, and um, hour and 15 minutes. If you don't have anything else to watch, maybe you should watch it, but you're not really missing that much if you don't. So that was kind of what I have to say. So let me know what you think. Has anyone out there actually watched this documentary that came out on January 9th? Let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you've got plans to watch it. Do you think it'll do you did you learn anything new from the documentary? And what do you think about Gravano? Why does he continue to make excuses for why he ratted and continue to tell his tall tales? So just put them out in the comments. And again, please hit the like button and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't. We're growing, we're putting out new content every day. We do the 60-second shorts that are, I think I probably got over 1,000 of them right now out there. And we go, and there's so many topics that we cover. And, I think it's good for people that have short attention spans. And we try to put out 3 videos a week out on, long form videos in the 15 to 30-minute range. Plus, we do interviews. So, anyway, until next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless you always.